Beatrice Sterling's knees struck the floor of her father's bakery, flour dusting her tear-streaked cheeks as she clutched the eviction notice in trembling hands. "Papa, forgive me," she whispered to the empty room. "They're taking everything." 6 hours. She had 6 hours before Mr. Patterson came to seize the only thing her father had ever left her. If you believe a woman's worth is what she builds with her own 2 hands, subscribe to this channel and stay with Beatrice until the final breath of her story. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I want to see how far her journey reaches. The flour had caked under Beatrice Sterling's fingernails for 3 days running. She hadn't slept. She hadn't stopped. "You hear me, Papa?" she said, hands deep in dough at 2 in the morning. "I ain't letting them take it. I ain't." She punched the dough harder than she needed to. In the corner beside the old iron stove her father had bought with his first year's honest money, the eviction notice lay face down like a body she couldn't bear to look at. "Mr. Patterson said sunset, Papa. Sunset." A fist pounded on the back door. She went still. "Beatrice Sterling, I know you're in there." Beatrice closed her eyes. She knew that voice without looking. Mrs. Eleanor Holloway, wife of the deacon tongue of the town. "I ain't got time for you, Eleanor. Open this door, girl. Go home, Eleanor. The whole town's been talking Beatrice. Folks say you've been seen begging at the livery stable." Beatrice wiped her hands on her apron, crossed to the back door, and yanked it open. Eleanor stood on the step in her Sunday bonnet at 2 in the morning, eyes shining with the particular light of a woman who had come to watch someone else fall. "I ain't been begging at the stable, Eleanor." "Then where did a girl with no credit at the mill find flour?" "I paid." "With what?" "With my hands. Same way my daddy paid for everything in this building." "Your daddy?" Eleanor clicked her tongue. "God rest him. But Beatrice, a woman alone can't run a bakery. It ain't natural. Maybe if you'd taken the Ferguson boy." "The Ferguson boy is 46 years old and drinks his breakfast. He would have kept a roof over your head." "I've got a roof over my head." "Not for much longer, from what I hear." Beatrice stepped forward. Her voice dropped low quiet the way her father used to speak when a man came asking a question he didn't care to answer. "Eleanor, go home." "I'm only trying to—" "Go home." She shut the door. Her hands shook. She went back to the kneading table and pressed her palms flat against the wood until they stopped. $24, Papa," she whispered. "24 by sunset." She had $3.60 in the tin box under the floorboard. She shaped a loaf. 24. She shaped another. 24. She didn't stop until the first tray was in the oven. She was sliding the second tray onto the rack when the front bell rang. She froze. "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Patterson, hours before sunset." She turned slow. He stood in the doorway of her bakery like a man surveying his own property. Black vest, black coat, silver watch chain across his belly that he kept touching like he wanted her to see it. "Mr. Patterson, you said sunset." "I changed my mind." "You wrote sunset on the notice, in your own hand." "I've written a lot of things, Miss Sterling." He stepped inside. The bell rang again behind him. 2 men followed. Beatrice knew them. Saloon men. The kind that carried more than they ever worked for. "Mr. Patterson, your men got no business in my bakery." "My bakery, come sundown." "Not till sundown." "Miss Sterling." He smiled the way a wolf smiled. "I am a businessman. I've got a gentleman coming through on the morning stage who'd like to see this building before he boards his return. He wants to open a proper establishment, a saloon as it happens, so I'll be showing him through this morning, not this evening." "No." "Beg pardon?" "I said no, not till sundown." "And if you can't pay by sundown, I will pay by sundown." He laughed a soft, small laugh that didn't belong in a bakery. "With what, Miss Sterling? With hope? With the memory of your daddy?" She flinched. She hated that she flinched. She saw him see it. $24, she said. "By sundown." 26 actually. I added interest." "You can't add interest between yesterday and today." "Miss Sterling, I can do whatever I please. This is my building. Your daddy died owing me money. That is the long and the short of it. My daddy didn't owe you anything he hadn't already paid in sweat 3 times over. Sweat ain't coin. She said nothing. He looked around. His eyes lingered on her mother's cross above the bread rack, on her father's apron hanging from the peg, on the small, carefully swept floor. "Sundown," he said at last. "Out of respect for your late father, $26 cash, or these 2 gentlemen and I return at dusk and put every stick of your possessions on the road." "I understand. I do hope you understand, Miss Sterling, because a woman on the road in this country, a woman without family to take her in, she don't fare well." I said I understand. He tipped his hat. "Good morning, Miss Sterling." The bell rang. He was gone. She stood in the silence a long moment. Her knees shook. She put a hand on the counter to keep from folding. "Papa." She closed her eyes. "Papa, I can't." In her head, she heard her father's voice the way she'd heard it the morning he died. His cough. The blood he wiped on the back of his hand and hid from her. The way he'd reached for her wrist and held it fingers thin as twigs. "B," he'd said, "you're the only thing I ever made worth a damn." "I ain't worth a damn today, Papa." No one answered. She straightened. She wiped her face on her sleeve. She went back to the counter and began to shape the last of the loaves with hands that would not stop trembling. $26. Over and over. $26. She shaped a loaf. 26. She shaped another. She had flour left for one more batch. After that, nothing. If she didn't sell every loaf this morning, every single one, she wouldn't clear $3 more. And even if she sold every loaf, it still wouldn't be 26. She slid the last batch into the oven. She watched the coals redden. She pressed her palms to the stove door until the iron burned her and she had to pull them away. Then far off a sound. A single horse, coming down the main road at a slow, measured walk. Not a wagon horse, not a town horse, a tall horse, a calm horse, a rider who wasn't in a hurry. It stopped in front of her door. The bell rang. She turned. The man who stood in her doorway took his hat off before he spoke. That was the first thing she noticed. In 15 years behind this counter, she could count on one hand the number of men who had taken their hat off for her. "Morning, ma'am." "Morning." He was tall, not young, not old. Somewhere past 30, brown coat dusted gray from the road, boots that had walked more country than most men ever saw. A face weathered the way her father's had been weathered not by years, but by weather and by work. "Didn't mean to startle you, ma'am." "You didn't." She was lying. He had. Her heart was beating in her throat. "Smells mighty fine in here." "Thank you." He looked around. Not the way Patterson had looked around. Not measuring what he could take. More like a man simply noticing. Noticing the cross above the bread rack. Noticing her father's apron on the peg. Noticing her hands caked in flour still trembling. "You the baker, ma'am." "I'm the baker." "By yourself." "By myself." "Huh." He nodded slow. "That's a lot of work for one set of hands." "I manage." "I reckon you do." Silence stretched. She waited for him to say something more. He didn't. He only stood there, hat in his hand, looking at the loaves on the rack. "Can I help you with something, mister?" "Yes, ma'am. I'd like to buy some bread." "A nickel a loaf, 3 for a dime." He nodded. She waited. "How many you got, ma'am?" 18 on the rack, 6 more coming out of the oven in about 10 minutes. "I'll take the lot." She blinked. "Beg pardon?" "I'll take the lot, all 24. "Sir, that's $1.20. I figured it closer to $1.50, ma'am. With respect for your morning's work." She couldn't answer. $1.50. Still more than $24 short of what she needed by sundown. He was already reaching into his coat. "Fact is, ma'am, I ain't just here for the morning's bread." "Sir?" "I'm bringing a proposal if you'll hear it." "A proposal?" "Yes, ma'am. I work a cattle operation 12 miles out. Quinn Valley Ranch. We got 18 hands on the main spread and 9 more on the South Range. We've been buying bread from a man in Silverton, but he's shutting up shop end of the month. We need a new baker. A new baker? Yes, ma'am. Fresh bread. 3 mornings a week. Big order. 40-50 loaves at a pickup. She gripped the counter. Sir, I don't know if I can... Figured that, ma'am. Figured you'd want to think on it. Figured I'd start by paying forward. 2 weeks in advance. He set something on the counter. She looked down. 3 gold coins. $20 apiece. $60. Sir, ma'am. Sir, that's too much. It ain't too much, ma'am. It's for the service. It's an agreement if you'll take it. You don't have to answer today, ma'am. I'll come by tomorrow. You think it over tonight. If you say no, you keep the 60 for this morning's batch and for the trouble of hearing me out. I'll understand. $60 for a batch of bread. $60 for the trust, ma'am. She stared at the coins. They sat on her counter like they had fallen out of some other woman's story. What did you say your name was, Mr.? I didn't say, ma'am. Quincy Vale. Foreman at Quinn Valley. Quincy Vale. Yes, ma'am. I'm Beatrice Sterling. Pleasure, Miss Sterling. He put his hat back on, tipped it, crossed behind her counter as natural as if she'd invited him and picked up the first stack of loaves like they didn't weigh anything. Carried them out to his horse. Came back. Took the second stack. Came back for the last 6 when they came out of the oven, still warm, and stacked them careful as eggs in a canvas sack. He unfolded from his saddlebag. At the door, he stopped, turned. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. I'll be back tomorrow, same hour. Mr. Vale, why? Ma'am, why my bakery? He looked at her a long moment, long enough that her face went hot. Because I rode past this place 3 mornings last week, ma'am, and every time I rode past the lantern was on. 3 in the morning, 4, before the sun. I figured whoever was working that hard in a town that don't seem to deserve her was worth doing business with. You watched my lantern. I noticed it, ma'am. Mr. Vale? Ma'am. Thank you. He tipped his hat again. Morning, Miss Sterling? The bell rang. He was gone. She didn't move for a long time. The gold coins sat on her counter. $60. She reached out a hand and touched one. It was warm from his coat pocket. She picked it up. It was real. She let out a sound that wasn't a laugh, and wasn't a cry, and wasn't a word. The bell rang. She shoved the coins into her apron before she turned. Eleanor Holloway stood in the doorway. Beatrice Sterling, was that? Good morning, Eleanor. Was that a Quinn Valley man in my town? I believe that's his business, not ours. Don't you sass me, girl. I saw him load 20 loaves into his saddle. 24. 24 loaves. Into a Quinn Valley saddlebag, at dawn, alone, with you. He paid for them. Paid what? His price, Eleanor. Beatrice, you let a single man walk into your bakery alone, before the sun was up. He took his hat off, which is more than you did. Eleanor's jaw worked. A woman alone ought to consider her reputation. A woman alone, Eleanor ought to consider her rent. Beatrice, I have work to do. You will ruin what good name you've got left. Beatrice turned. She looked Eleanor in the eye for the first time since Eleanor had walked in. Eleanor, my daddy is dead. My mother is dead. My 2 brothers died in the same winter as my mama. My 1 sister ran off with a drover 8 years ago and ain't written me since. Everything I love in this world lives in this building. So if Mr. Patterson puts me on the road at sundown, my good name ain't going to buy me supper. Beatrice, go home, Eleanor. Go home. Eleanor went. Beatrice leaned on the counter. Her whole body shook, not from fear this time, from something worse. Hope always had farther to fall than despair did. She pulled the coins out of her apron and laid them on the counter. She stacked them in a row of 3. Papa, you see this? She wiped her eyes on the back of her wrist. She swept the flour from the counter. She scrubbed the kneading table. She wiped the oven handle. She washed her hands twice. She took off her apron and hung it on the peg next to her father's. Then she waited. She waited through the morning. She waited through noon. She waited through the long, slow, terrible afternoon. The sun went lower. She watched it from her front window. She watched men pass on the road. She watched Mrs. Holloway cross the street 3 times looking in. At last, the shadow of Mr. Patterson fell across her door. The bell rang. He had the 2 saloon men with him again, and behind them, a small, neat gentleman in a pressed suit holding a folded paper in gloved hands. The buyer. He had brought the buyer. Miss Sterling. Mr. Patterson. It is sundown. I know what time it is. My $26, Miss Sterling. She walked to the counter. She took one of the gold coins from where she had set them. She laid it on the counter. 20. Mr. Patterson's face did not move. She laid down the second. 40. The buyer in the pressed suit coughed very politely into a gloved hand. She set down 4 silver dollars from her tin box under the floorboard. 44. $26, Mr. Patterson, and 18 more paid forward against next month's rent. So we won't be needing to have this conversation come July. The buyer looked at Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson looked at the coins. The saloon men shifted on their feet. Miss Sterling, where did you... Do you accept the payment, Mr. Patterson? Where did you find? Do you accept the payment, Mr. Patterson, or shall I fetch the sheriff to witness the tender? A long silence. Mr. Patterson picked up the coins. Payment accepted, Miss Sterling. Much obliged. Miss Sterling. Good evening, Mr. Patterson. Give my regards to the gentleman. He hesitated. He looked at her hands steady on the counter. He tipped his hat. The bell rang as the 3 men stepped out onto the boards. Beatrice stood behind her counter in the dying light of the day. She kept her hands flat on the wood. She did not move. She did not allow herself to move until the sound of their boots had faded all the way down the road. Then she sat down on the floor behind her counter in the flour dust in her father's apron, on the peg above her in the warm last light coming through her front glass, and she cried quietly, with her sleeve pressed to her face. She did not cry because she was afraid. She cried because for the first time in a year, she had something left to lose. Morning came at Beatrice's window before she was ready for it. She had slept on the kneading table with her father's apron balled under her head. The last gold coin lay against her cheek, where she'd held it all night like a child's doll. She sat up. She put her feet on the cold floor. Papa, he said he'd come back. She said it out loud. She needed to hear it out loud to believe it. He said tomorrow. Same hour. She washed her face in the basin. She twisted her hair up. She put on a clean apron. She had no flour left. She had nothing to bake, but she lit the oven anyway. Because the man who had left $60 on her counter was coming at dawn. And she would not let him find her cold. The bell rang at 5 minutes past the hour. She turned with her hand at her throat. It was not Quincy Vale. Mrs. Eleanor Holloway stood in her door. And behind Eleanor, 3 more women in Sunday bonnets. Beatrice Sterling. Eleanor. We come to talk to you. I am not open yet. We ain't come for bread. Then I am not open for you at all. Beatrice? Eleanor, I told you last night. Go home. Mrs. Holloway stepped inside without being asked. Mrs. Crane followed her. Then the Pickens sisters, the 2 unmarried ones who had not spoken a kind word to Beatrice at church in 3 years. Beatrice? Eleanor said a decent woman in this town has got to think of more than her rent. I thought of my rent. I paid it. We heard. I figured you had. And we heard how. I paid it in coin. Coin from a cowhand. From a buyer. Of bread. A single man. Alone. Before sunrise. Eleanor, if you've come to save my soul is occupied. Mrs. Crane spoke then. Low. Flat. The voice of a woman delivering a sentence. Beatrice, I knew your mama. Lord rest her. And your mama would not want you taking coin from a Quinn Valley hand. My mama, Mrs. Crane, would want me eating supper. Beatrice Sterling. Mrs. Crane. Quinn Valley ain't a decent outfit. That stopped her. Beg pardon. You heard me, girl. Quinn Valley is the biggest cattle operation for 40 miles. They have put beef on this town's tables since before I had teeth in my head. There is beef, and there is the men that drive it, and the men that drive it. Mrs. Crane. The foreman Beatrice, that foreman. Mr. Vale, if that is what he calls himself. Beatrice went still. What are you saying to me, Mrs. Crane? Eleanor stepped in smooth as oil. We ain't saying nothing, Beatrice. Only there is talk. There has been talk about that man for a good while. And a girl in your situation. A girl in my situation, Eleanor had $26 owed to her landlord at sundown. And not one of you standing in this room came to see if I'd make it. Not one. Beatrice, Mrs. Pickens, I have known you my whole life. You did not cross this street once this winter when I had the fever. Not once. Now, Beatrice, that ain't fair. You did not bring me broth. You did not bring me water. Beatrice. And now a man pays honest coin for honest bread. And you all come in a pack at dawn to tell me what kind of woman I am. Beatrice. Get out of my bakery. Beatrice Sterling. I said out. Eleanor's mouth thinned to a line. She turned. The women turned with her. But at the door, Eleanor stopped. She did not look back. Beatrice, I am trying to save you from yourself. Eleanor, I do not need saving from myself. I need saving from my rent. And ain't one of you ever going to pay that. The bell rang. They were gone. Beatrice stood behind her counter with her hands flat on it. She stared at the door. Her ears were ringing. Quinn Valley ain't a decent outfit, if that is what he calls himself. She shut her eyes. No, she said. No, Mrs. Crane. You don't get to do that to me, not today. But her hands shook. She hid the last gold coin in the tin box under the floor with the 4 silver dollars she had left. And then she waited. She waited a long time. And then, far off one horse, slow, measured, coming down the main road. She stepped out onto her boards before she could stop herself. The horse drew up. Quincy Vale sat the saddle with a wagon rolling up behind him, a second man driving it. The wagon bed was full of sacks, flour sacks, stacked 3 deep. Her throat closed. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. Hope you don't mind I brought help. Help. Yes, ma'am. This here is Tomas Delgado. He rides for Quinn Valley. Been with us 11 years. The man on the wagon seat tipped his hat. Ma'am. Mr. Delgado. Miss Sterling, I asked Tomas to bring a wagon because, well, ma'am, I got to thinking last night. If you took our offer, you would be needing flour. More than that little mill of Carter's is going to want to sell a woman on her own. You brought me flour. 8 sacks, ma'am, ranch stores. You can pay us back on the contract. Or not at all, if you would rather pay at the mill, but I figured, Mr. Vale. Ma'am. She could not speak. She gripped the porch post. You all right, Miss Sterling? Mr. Vale, you do not know me. No, ma'am. You do not owe me anything. No, ma'am. So why? Miss Sterling. Why, Mr. Vale? He got down off his horse. He handed the reins to Tomas. He took off his hat the way he had taken it off yesterday and held it against his leg. Miss Sterling, might we speak inside? With respect to Tomas, this ain't a street conversation. She stepped back. She held the door. He came inside. He closed it behind him. He did not take another step. Mr. Vale? Miss Sterling, my mother baked bread. She looked at him. Beg pardon. My mother. Back in Missouri. She baked bread for our town. After my daddy passed, she did. She was a widow. She raised 5 of us on an oven the size of this one. Mr. Vale. She lost the shop, ma'am. The bakery went quiet. She lost it to a man like your Mr. Patterson. I was 11 years old. I watched them put her flour barrels out on the road. I watched her sit down on the boards and put her apron over her face. Beatrice pressed her hand to her mouth. We ate at other folks' tables for a year and a half, Miss Sterling. My mother never baked again. Never. Not for us. Not for herself. She died 8 years later, and she had not so much as lit an oven since that day on the road. Mr. Vale. So when I rode past your lantern 3 mornings in a row, I did not ride past it the 4th morning. That is the truth of it, ma'am. I am not a good man. I am not a bad man. But I know what a woman alone in a bakery looks like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was not going to ride past you again. She could not answer. I do need the bread, ma'am. That part is true. The ranch needs the bread. It is good business. But I'll own to you I would have paid for that bread yesterday if it had been burned. I would have paid for it if it had been raw. I would have paid for it if you had handed me a sack of rocks. Because when I rode in yesterday morning and saw your hands shaking on that counter, I was 11 years old again. Beatrice closed her eyes. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. Have I given offense? No. You are crying, ma'am. I know I'm crying. Leave me be a minute. He waited. He did not move. He did not speak. She wiped her face on her apron. She steadied. Mr. Vale, I will take your contract. Ma'am? 3 mornings a week. 40 to 50 loaves. Fresh. Pick up at dawn. Yes, ma'am. And I will pay you back for every sack of that flour. Ma'am. Every sack, Mr. Vale. Yes, ma'am. Off the first deliveries, before I take a cent of profit, if that is how you want it, Miss Sterling. It is how I want it. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Vale. Ma'am, your mother. Ma'am? What was her name? He was quiet a long moment. Ruth Vale, ma'am. Ruth Vale. Yes, ma'am. I'll bake a loaf for Ruth Vale, Mr. Vale. First one out of that oven come Thursday. And you eat it yourself. He tipped his hat against his leg in a gesture that was not quite a bow. Much obliged, Miss Sterling. He went back outside. He and Tomas unloaded the flour into her storeroom. He did not let her carry a single sack. Tomas did not either. When the last sack was stacked, Quincy stood at the door with his hat in his hand. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. I will be back Thursday, before the sun. I will be ready. Ma'am. The bell rang. He mounted. The wagon rolled off down the road. Beatrice stood in the doorway. Across the street in front of the mercantile, Mr. Patterson watched her. He had been standing there the whole time. He did not move. He did not come over. He did not speak. He only stood in the shade with his watch chain catching the morning light, and he looked at her. And he looked at the last corner of the Quinn Valley wagon turning out of sight down the road. Then he crossed the street. Miss Sterling. Mr. Patterson. Busy morning. Good morning for business. I was not aware, Miss Sterling, that you had an arrangement with the Quinn Valley outfit. I was not aware, Mr. Patterson, that my arrangements were your concern. Miss Sterling, I hold the paper on your building. You hold the paper on the rent, Mr. Patterson. The building is mine. The building is mine until the ledger says otherwise. Then I will see that the ledger says otherwise. He smiled, the same wolf smile. Miss Sterling, I wonder did that Quinn Valley hand tell you he was foreman? He said he was foreman. Did he? He did. Interesting. Mr. Patterson. Miss Sterling. If you have something to say about Mr. Vale, say it on the boards like a man, or go home. That stopped him, for half a second. Then his smile came back. Miss Sterling. Carter's Mill will not be selling you flour. Beg pardon. Carter's Mill. Up the road. I spoke to Mr. Carter this morning. He will not be selling flour to the Sterling Bakery, effective today. Her hand closed on the counter. Mr. Patterson, Mr. Carter has sold my family flour for 21 years. Mr. Carter has a note at my bank for $800, Miss Sterling. You? Business, Miss Sterling. Only business. You went to him. I did. You would starve me out. Miss Sterling, I would never starve a woman. I would only suggest that a woman in a town that does not support her might consider a different town. I am not leaving. Then I would suggest you find your flour elsewhere. Mr. Patterson. Miss Sterling. Out. Beg pardon? Out of my bakery. I said out. He looked at her a long moment. His smile did not quite cover what was underneath it. Good day, Miss Sterling. The bell rang. Beatrice sat down on her flour sack stool behind the counter. She put her hands in her lap. She did not tremble. She had 8 sacks of Quinn Valley flour in her storeroom. She was not dependent on Carter's mill. Not today. Not this week. She laughed a short, hard laugh that came up out of her chest like a cough. Papa? She shook her head. Papa, he tried to starve me. And he didn't know. She got up. She went to the storeroom. She put her hand on the top flour sack. The burlap was warm from the sun. She could smell the wheat clear through the weave. Quinn Valley flour. Good flour. Milled honest. Thank you, Mr. Vale. Then she went back out front and she began to bake. She baked all morning. She baked through noon. She had nothing yet to sell. The bell rang twice, and both times it was only children wanting a heel. She gave them heels, and she took no coin for either because she had been their age once and had stood on her toes at that same counter with a pocket that held no pennies. She was shaping the 4th tray of the day when the bell rang one more time. Miss Sterling? She did not recognize the voice. She turned. An old man stood at her counter. Thin, cleaner than most. A Bible in his hand which he had not brought to preach from, he was using it to hold his place like a man who carried his Bible, the way another man carried a pocket knife. Reverend Hollis, her father's friend. She had not seen him since the funeral. Reverend. Beatrice. Sir, I have not been to service in— I know you have not, child. I ain't come to ask forgiveness. I ain't come to give it, Beatrice. That stopped her. Sir. He looked over his shoulder, out her front window, up the street, down it. Then he stepped closer to the counter. He lowered his voice. Beatrice, your daddy was my friend. Yes, sir. 41 years. Yes, sir. I buried him. Yes, sir. I buried your mama. Yes, sir. So I'm going to speak to you the way a man speaks to the daughter of his friend, and then I am going to walk out of here. And if anybody asks me, I was never in this bakery. Am I clear, Beatrice? Reverend. Am I clear? Yes, sir, you are clear. Beatrice. Sir. The man who came here this morning. Mr. Vale. Yes, Mr. Vale. What about him, Reverend Sewell? Beatrice. There is a story in this town about Quincy Vale. She gripped the counter. Reverend. You hear me out, child. You hear me out and then you decide. Yes, sir. 3 years ago, Beatrice, there was a man by the name of Harland Road foreman for Quinn Valley. Big man, loud man, drank too much, but a man. Yes, sir. He was shot dead on a trail drive up in the mountains. Yes, sir. The man who was with him on that drive was Quincy Vale. She did not speak. The Quinn Valley outfit said it was Indians, Beatrice. That is the story the ranch tells. Yes, sir. Patterson says it was Mr. Vale. Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson says Quincy Vale shot Harland in the back for the foreman job. Mr. Patterson is a liar. Beatrice. Mr. Patterson has told this town I was begging at the livery stable. Mr. Patterson told Mr. Carter not to sell me flour. Mr. Patterson would tell the devil himself he was a deacon if it got him a building. Beatrice. I know what Patterson is. Then, child, I am not telling you what is true. I am telling you what is in this town. And if a woman of your standing, a woman alone, takes the coin of a man with that story around his neck. Reverend. Beatrice. Did my daddy ever take coin from a man that didn't deserve it? No, child. Did my daddy ever turn honest coin away because a deacon's wife did not like it? No, child. Then I am my daddy's daughter, ain't I? Reverend Hollis looked at her a long moment. You are Beatrice. Yes, sir. I only needed you to know. I know now, Reverend. If the story is true, Reverend, I will hear it from a man other than Mr. Patterson, and I will hear it before I sign any paper. But Mr. Vale bought my bread yesterday when no one else in this town would cross the street for me. He carried flour 12 miles to a woman he did not know. And I am not, Reverend, going to throw that back on the boards, because Eleanor Holloway is nervous. He nodded. Slow. You are your daddy's girl, Beatrice Sterling. Thank you, sir. He put his hand on the counter. Not on hers, near hers. Beatrice? Sir? You be careful. Yes, sir. You hear me? Patterson wants this building. He will not stop wanting it. I know he won't. And whatever the truth is about Mr. Vale, a woman alone does not get a second chance in this country. I know that too, Reverend. He tipped his hat. Gentle. Old. The way her father would have. Good afternoon, Beatrice. The bell rang. He was gone. She stood behind her counter for a long time. Quincy Vale shot Harland in the back. For the foreman job. She felt the words the way a woman feels a stone in her pocket. She did not want to carry them. She did not know yet whether she was carrying a stone or a bullet. She looked at her father's apron on the peg. Papa. Quiet. Papa. What do I do? The apron did not answer. The oven ticked behind her. After a long time, she went to the storeroom. She sat down on a flour sack. She put her hand flat on the burlap. Mr. Vale. She spoke to a man who was 12 miles away. Mr. Vale, you told me about your mother. She closed her eyes. And a man who lies does not put his mother's name in another woman's mouth. She breathed out. You said Ruth Vale. You said it like it still hurt. She opened her eyes. She got up. She went back to the front. She shaped the 5th tray of the day. She did not think about Patterson. She did not think about Eleanor Holloway. She did not think about Harland or trail drives or mountains. She thought about her oven and her flour and Thursday. The bell did not ring again that day. She locked the front door at dusk. She sat in the back at her father's little table and ate a heel of the day's bread with butter and a cup of tea that was mostly water. She had just swallowed the last of it when she heard the sound. Not a horse, not the bell. A scrape. Low. At the back door. She went still. Hello? Nothing. Who's there? Nothing. She stood. Slow. She crossed to the back door. She put her hand on the latch. She did not open it. I said, who's there? A voice. Low. Male. Close to the wood. Miss Sterling. Who is that? Miss Sterling. I got a message for you. From who? From a friend. I do not know your voice, mister. Miss Sterling. Step off my boards. Miss Sterling. Your friend, Mr. Vale. Her hand tightened on the latch. What about Mr. Vale? Mr. Vale ain't coming Thursday. Beg pardon? Mr. Vale ain't coming Thursday, Miss Sterling. He ain't the foreman at Quinn Valley, and the man you want to be careful of in this town. Mister. The man you want to be careful of, Miss Sterling. Step off my boards before I fetch the sheriff. Ain't Mr. Patterson. She froze. What did you say? But the voice was already moving. She heard the boots on the boards. She heard them off the boards. She heard them fading down the alley behind her bakery. She did not open the door. She stood with her hand on the latch and her heart hammering in her ears. On the other side of the door, the night was going quiet again. And somewhere 12 miles off in the dark, Quincy Vale was bedded down in a bunkhouse he had told her was his. And she did not know. She did not know. She did not know whose voice had just come to her door, and whose name she was supposed to be afraid of now. She did not sleep. She sat at the back door with her father's old shotgun across her knees. She watched the latch until the first gray of Thursday morning crept under the sill. The sun came up gray and slow, and Beatrice Sterling did not move from the back door. Her father's shotgun lay across her knees. Her hands were steady. They had stopped shaking somewhere in the middle of the night, around the time she had decided that a woman with a gun in her lap is not the same woman who had cried on the floor 2 days before. Come on, Mr. Vale. She spoke to the wood. You said before the sun, The sun is up. The sun kept coming. The alley stayed empty. She stood at last. Her legs were stiff. She put the shotgun behind the counter where her father had always kept it, butt toward her hand, barrel toward the wall. She washed her face. She tied her apron. She lit the oven. She had told him Thursday. She had told him she would be ready. She would be ready whether he came or he did not. By 6 o'clock, she had the first tray in. By 7 o'clock, she had the second. By 8 o'clock, she had 40 loaves on her racks, the heat coming off them in soft waves, and the road outside her front glass was still empty of any Quinn Valley wagon. The bell rang. She turned. It was not Quincy Vale. Sheriff Eli Boone stood in her door with his hat in his hand. Behind him on the boards, Mr. Patterson. Behind Patterson, Mrs. Eleanor Holloway. Miss Sterling. Sheriff. Miss Sterling, I am sorry to come to you this way. Then go home, Sheriff, and take those two with you. Beatrice. Sheriff. A complaint has been filed, Miss Sterling. A complaint? Yes, ma'am. By who? By Mr. Patterson, and by Mrs. Holloway. And what is the complaint, Sheriff Boone? The sheriff looked at his hat. He turned it in his hands. He did not want to say it. Say it, Sheriff. Conduct unbecoming Miss Sterling. Unbecoming. Yes, ma'am. Unbecoming of what? A woman of Miss Sterling, please. A woman of what, Sheriff Boone? Of a single woman in a decent town, Miss Sterling, who has been seen at unchaperoned hours with a customer sheriff. Miss Sterling, with a man who bought bread over my counter in broad daylight. Eleanor stepped up behind the sheriff. It was not daylight, Beatrice. It was before dawn, and you know it. Eleanor, I will not speak to you this morning. I will speak to the sheriff. Sheriff, what is the complaint? Sheriff Boone cleared his throat. Miss Sterling, the complaint. It asks the town council to examine your fitness to hold a business license in Durango. The blood left her face. My license. Yes, ma'am. My father's license, Sheriff. Miss Sterling. My father's license that he held for 29 years in this town. I know, Miss Sterling, I know. I am only delivering the complaint. The council will meet on Monday. Monday? Yes, ma'am. 4 days. Yes, ma'am. She gripped the counter. Sheriff Boone, look at me. He looked up. Sheriff, you knew my father. I did, ma'am. You ate at his table. I did, ma'am. You carried his coffin. I did, Miss Sterling. And you stand in his doorway today and you tell me my license is under review because a man who wants this building and a woman who has never liked me filed a complaint. Miss Sterling. Is that what you are telling me, Sheriff? I am telling you what the ordinance requires me to tell you, Miss Sterling. That is all I am telling you. She looked at him a long moment. He did not look away, and in his eyes she saw something that was not against her. It was shame. It was an old man's shame at a young woman's steadiness. I understand, Sheriff. I am sorry, Miss Sterling. I know you are. He put his hat back on. He turned to go. Patterson stayed. Mr. Patterson. Miss Sterling. Off my boards. Miss Sterling, I only wish to say, off my boards. A proposal, Miss Sterling. Before the council meets, I would offer $400 for this building, cash, today, and a stage ticket to any town you care to name. $400. Yes, ma'am. For a bakery my father built from nothing, that he added 2 rooms to with his own hands, that he paid $1,000 of honest coin into over 29 years. Business, Miss Sterling. Only. Patterson. It was the sheriff's voice, low, from the boards. Patterson, leave the woman be. Sheriff, I said leave her be. I served you the paper. Now come along, or file another complaint on yourself for harassment. Patterson's mouth pulled tight. He tipped his hat at Beatrice, which was not a kindness. Until Monday, Miss Sterling. Until Monday, Mr. Patterson. The bell rang. The 3 of them went. The sheriff's boots sounded heavier on the boards than the other 2 put together. Beatrice stood behind her counter. 40 loaves cooled on her racks. The clock on her wall read 8:22. Quincy Vale was now an hour and 22 minutes late. "Papa," she said it to the empty room. "Papa, he ain't coming." The apron on the peg did not answer. She walked to her back room. She sat down on a flour sack. She put her forehead against her knees. "Mr. Vale ain't comin' Thursday." The voice at her door last night. She heard it again now, clear as if the man were in her room. "Mr. Vale ain't comin' Thursday." She closed her eyes. "No." She spoke the word out loud. "No, I ain't believin' it." But he was late, and the council was meeting Monday, and Patterson was moving all his pieces at once. A horse. She lifted her head. One horse. Slow. Coming from the wrong direction, not from the east road out of town, but from the south. She stood. The bell rang before she was at the counter. Quincy Vale stood in her doorway with his hat in his hand and a bandage around his left forearm, soaked through in one dark place, with blood that had dried and started to crack. "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Vale." "I am late." "You are." "I beg your pardon, ma'am." "Your arm." He looked down at it as if he had forgotten it. "It is nothing, ma'am." "It is something." "Ma'am." "Sit down, Mr. Vale." "Ma'am, the wagon." "Mr. Vale, there are no loaves going into any wagon until I see that arm. Sit down." He sat. She brought the clean water from her back. She brought her mother's sewing kit, not for the arm, for the bandage which needed cutting away. She brought the pot of honey from her shelf. "Mr. Vale, this is going to hurt." "Yes, ma'am." She cut the bandage. He did not flinch. It was a knife cut, 4 inches, down the meat of his forearm. Not deep, but ugly. Someone had wrapped it in a hurry with a strip from a shirt, and there was still grit in it. "Mr. Vale." "Ma'am." "Who did this?" He did not answer. "Mr. Vale." "Miss Sterling, the bread. We need to load." "Mr. Vale, the bread is not going anywhere. Who did this?" He looked at her. He was tired. She saw it now. Not the tired of a man who had gotten up at 3 to ride 12 miles. The tired of a man who had not slept in longer than that. 3 men, ma'am, on the South Road, about 4 miles out. 3. "Yes, ma'am." "They robbed you." "No, ma'am." "Mr. Vale." "They did not rob me, Miss Sterling. They did not take a thing off my wagon. Tomas is parked a mile south of here with the horses. I walked in the last mile by a back trail. They did not rob you." "No, ma'am." "Then what did they do, Mr. Vale?" "They delivered a message, ma'am." Her hand stopped. "A message?" "Yes, ma'am." "What message?" "That Quinn Valley does not buy bread in Durango anymore." The honey pot was in her hand. She set it down careful on the counter. "Mr. Vale, did they say who sent them?" "They did not need to, ma'am." "Mr. Vale, Miss Sterling, please." He let out a breath. "Ma'am, they were Dax Harlan's men." The name did not mean anything to her, and then all at once it did. "Harland." "Yes, ma'am." "Harland." "Yes, Miss Sterling." "The foreman, Mr. Vale. The Harland that rode foreman for Quinn Valley, before you." Quincy went still. "Ma'am, who told you that name?" "Answer my question, Mr. Vale." "Miss Sterling, who—" "Mr. Vale, Reverend Hollis came here yesterday. Mr. Patterson has been telling this town for 3 years that you shot a man named Harland in the back on a trail drive, for the foreman job." He closed his eyes. "Mr. Vale." "Ma'am, tell me that is a lie." "Miss Sterling, tell me." "Ma'am, I did not shoot Joe Harland." "Then who did?" "Dax Harland did." She put her hand on the counter. "Beg pardon?" "Joe Harland's own brother, Miss Sterling, on that same drive, drunk, at night. An argument about a card game that had been festering for a week. Dax Harland put a bullet in the back of his own brother's head. And when morning came, and the rest of us found Joe dead, Dax said Indians. Said it was Indians that done it. You were there." I was. Did you see it? No, ma'am. I did not see the shot. I was on the far side of the herd. I heard it. I rode in. I saw Dax Harlan standing over his brother with a pistol in his hand that had been fired and a lie already put together in his mouth. Did you tell the ranch? I did. Did they believe you? Mr. Quinn did. The old man did. He had known both of them since they were boys. He had seen Dax drunk, and he had seen Dax mean, and he knew what Dax was. He paid Dax off. He sent him out of the territory, and he gave me the foreman job. And the town? And the town believed the story Dax told in the saloon on his way out, ma'am. That the Indians killed Joe and Mr. Quinn was covering it up. That I was the one that pulled the trigger. Mr. Vale. Ma'am. You never cleared your name. No, ma'am. Why? Because it was not my name that needed clearing, Miss Sterling. It was the old man's, and the old man said let it lie. He said a foreman's name mends with work, and I reckoned he was right. Then why is Dax Harlan in my town, Mr. Vale? He looked up at her. Because he is back, Miss Sterling. Back? Yes, ma'am. He rode in 10 days ago. He has been at the hotel. He has been in the saloon. And he has been with Mr. Patterson. Quincy went very still. Ma'am. He has, ain't he? Miss Sterling, how do you... Because a man came to my back door last night, Mr. Vale, after dark. He told me you would not come Thursday. He told me the man to fear in this town was not Mr. Patterson. Quincy's jaw set hard. Did he give his name? No. Did you open the door? No, sir. Good. Mr. Vale. Ma'am. I need you to look at me. He looked. Mr. Vale, I have 4 days until the town council meets to take my license. I have a landlord who wants this building, and now from what you are telling me has a man helping him who has already killed his own brother. I have a church full of women who will sign anything Eleanor Holloway puts in front of them, and I have an order of 40 loaves of bread on my rack with no wagon outside to carry them. Miss Sterling, I am not done, Mr. Vale. Yes, ma'am. I need to know, right now, looking at me, with that cut on your arm and my honey pot on my counter, is anything you have told me since you walked in my door 2 days ago a lie? He did not look away. No, Miss Sterling. I have not lied to you. Not about my mother. Not about Joe Harland. Not about the bread. Not about anything. You swear it. On my mother's name, Ruth Vale, I swear it. She looked at him a long, long moment. Then she picked up the honey pot. This is going to hurt, Mr. Vale. Yes, ma'am. She cleaned the wound. She packed it with honey the way her mother had taught her. She bound it in clean linen. She tore off the bottom of her own good Sunday petticoat because it was the cleanest cloth in the building. He watched her do it. He did not speak. When she was done, she washed her hands. She dried them. She looked at him. Mr. Vale. Miss Sterling. We need to load your wagon. Ma'am. Those loaves are going to Quinn Valley, Mr. Vale. Those loaves are going today. If Dax Harlan's men are between my bakery and your ranch, then we will go around them. If they are at Tomas's wagon, then we will take a different wagon. If they are at the road, then we will take the creek. But those loaves are going, because Dax Harlan does not get to tell me who I sell my bread to. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. You are, yes, you are something, ma'am. I am my father's daughter, Mr. Vale. That is all I am. She turned. She went to the door. She closed it. She dropped the latch. She drew the blind down. Miss Sterling. We load from the back alley, Mr. Vale, and we do not go out the front until dark. Ma'am, I am closing the bakery. Miss Sterling. For today, only for today, because if Dax Harlan walks past this window in the next hour, I do not want him to know you are inside. Ma'am, I can walk out and meet him in the street. You can. I can settle it. You could. Then, Mr. Vale, sit down. He sat. Mr. Vale, if you go out on those boards and meet Dax Harlan, one of two things happens. He shoots you, or you shoot him. And if you shoot him, Sheriff Boone puts you in a cell. And if you are in a cell, Mr. Patterson gets my building Monday, and Dax Harland rides out of town, and Quinn Valley loses a foreman, and I lose a bakery, and 3 years of lies about a dead man in the mountains become the truth, because there was no one left to tell it different." He was silent. "So you do not go out on those boards, Mr. Vale?" "No, ma'am. Not today." "No, ma'am. We are going to do this by the book. We are going to make the load the wagon. We are going to make the delivery. You are going to write your Mr. Quinn a letter from his own bunkhouse tonight. And that letter is going to ride back into town by the hand of a man this town trusts before the council meets on Monday. Am I clear, Mr. Vale?" "Miss Sterling, am I clear?" "Yes, Miss Sterling. You are clear." "Good." She turned to the back. "Miss Sterling." "Yes, Mr. Vale?" "You have done this before." "Done what, Mr. Vale?" "Made a plan of an afternoon with a man bleeding on your counter." "No, sir." "It seems you have." "No. I have sat in this bakery for a year, Mr. Vale, and watched one thing after another take pieces of it. And I have learned that a woman who does not plan ends up on the boards with her flour barrels behind her. I am not going to end up on the boards. No, ma'am, I do not think you are." They loaded the wagon from the alley. Tomas had brought it up in the last hour quiet around the back of the livery where no one would see. They loaded 38 loaves, 2 had gone cold past fit into clean canvas sacks. Quincy lifted with his good arm. Tomas did the rest. Beatrice worked beside them fast, no wasted motion. At the back door, Quincy stopped. "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Vale." "The letter, to Mr. Quinn. You want him to tell the council what he knows." "I do. He is a hard old man." "Is he a fair one?" "He is the fairest man I have ever worked for." "Then he will come." "Miss Sterling." "Yes." "What if he does not come?" She looked at him. "Then I lose my license on Monday, Mr. Vale." "And then what, ma'am?" "And then, Mr. Vale, I stand in this doorway on Tuesday, and I bake bread anyway, and I sell it anyway, without a license, and they will have to take me out in the street, in front of the whole town, and I will make them do it." "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Vale." "You would do that?" "Yes, sir, I would." "Alone?" "If I have to." He tipped his hat. Gentle. Slow. "Miss Sterling, you are not going to have to." Mr. Vale. "Ma'am, go, before someone sees. Ride the South Trail and do not take the main road. Get to your ranch, write the letter. Send it by Tomas tomorrow early and have him ride in by the creek bed." And Mr. Vale. "Ma'am, do not come back here yourself until Monday." Miss Sterling. "If you come back, Dax Harlan knows where to find you, and if he finds you, he finds me, so stay at the ranch." Miss Sterling, "I will not leave you alone in this town with that man." Mr. Vale. "Ma'am, I have been alone in this town my whole life. 4 more days will not kill me." He held her eye a long moment, then he nodded, once. "Monday, Miss Sterling." "Monday, Mr. Vale." He stepped up onto the wagon seat beside Tomas. Tomas clucked to the team. The wagon rolled out of her alley and turned south away from the main road and was gone. Beatrice stood at her back door. She latched it. She went back to her front. She raised the blind. She set her closed sign in the window. She sat down behind her counter on the flour sack stool. She did not allow herself to cry. Not today. There was no time. The bell rang. She lifted her head slow. A man stood in her doorway. He was not tall. He was not young. He had a long face and a thin mouth, and eyes the same wet gray as the bottom of a creek. He wore his hat indoors. "Miss Sterling, we are closed." "I see that, ma'am." "Then good day to you, mister." "I will only be a moment, Miss Sterling." "A moment for what?" "Introductions." Her hand went under the counter. Her father's shotgun sat there, butt toward her palm, the way it had since her father had built this counter with his own hands. "I do not need introductions from men who walk into closed bakeries, sir." "You will want this one, ma'am." "Will I?" "Yes, Miss Sterling." He smiled. It was a thin smile. It did not reach the creek-bottom eyes. "My name is Dax Harland." Her hand closed on the shotgun stock. She did not lift it. "Mr. Harland." "Miss Sterling." "State your business." "I have none." "Miss Sterling, I only came by to meet the baker I have heard so much about, the one who has been keeping late company." "Mr. Harland, I do not keep company. I run a bakery." "Is that so?" "That is so." "Miss Sterling, there is a Quinn Valley wagon track in your alley." Her hand tightened. "Is there?" "Fresh." "I receive flour deliveries, Mr. Harland. 2 outfits sell flour in this county. One of them is Quinn Valley. That is not a secret." "No, ma'am. No secret." He stepped closer to the counter. She lifted the shotgun. She did not point it. She only set it across the counter barrel toward the wall butt, toward her shoulder. The way her father had. His eyes went to it. His smile did not change. "That's your daddy's piece, Miss Sterling." "It is." "He was a fine gunsmith, your daddy." "He was a baker, Mr. Harland." "A baker who kept a greener under his counter." "A baker who had a daughter, Mr. Harland." He tipped his head. "Miss Sterling, I am not here to harm you." "Then you are not here at all, Mr. Harland, because I did not invite you, and I have told you I am closed." "Monday, Miss Sterling." "Beg pardon. The council meeting, ma'am. I understand it is Monday. I only come to say whatever the council decides. I would not wish this town to be hard on a woman of your standing." "My standing?" "Yes, ma'am." "Mr. Harland, go." "Miss Sterling." "I said go." He smiled the thin smile. He tipped his hat, not to her, but at the shotgun, like he was greeting it. "Good afternoon, Miss Sterling." The bell rang. He was gone. Beatrice held the shotgun until her hand ached, until her breathing steadied, until she was sure past any doubt that his bootsteps had gone all the way down the boards and off the end of them. Then she set the shotgun back under the counter. She stood. She walked very calmly to the front door. She turned the key. She set the iron bar across it that her father had put there one winter years before, when a drifter had once tried to break in. She went to the back door. She set the bar on that one too. She stood in the middle of her bakery. Her father's apron hung on the peg. The oven ticked. 4038, no loaves on her racks now. Only flour dust, and the warm smell of the morning's work, and the small square of late light coming in through her front glass. "Papa." She spoke into the quiet. "Papa, I am not afraid." It was the closest to the truth she could come. She went to the back. She sat down at her father's little table. She took a clean sheet of paper, and she took the pen and the ink her father had kept in the drawer for writing to his suppliers. And she did a thing she had not done in her life before that hour. She wrote a letter to the old man at Quinn Valley Ranch. She wrote it in her own hand. She told him plain and brief who she was. She told him what Quincy Vale had done in her bakery. She told him what Dax Harland had done in her bakery. She told him what the council would meet about on Monday. And at the end of it, she did not ask him to come. She only wrote in the last line, "Mr. Quinn, sir. I am not asking on behalf of myself. I am asking on behalf of the name of a foreman you have trusted 11 years. His name is good. This town has been told it is not. You are the only man who can put that right. And I reckon a man like you does not like a lie told long on a man that rides for him. Respectfully, Beatrice Sterling." She sealed it. She stood. She did not know how she would get the letter out to Quinn Valley before Tomas came in the morning. She did not know who Dax Harland had watching her doors tonight. She did not know which of her neighbors would look away if they saw her carrying a letter in the dark. She did know one thing. She was going to carry it anyway. She put on her father's coat. It swallowed her. The sleeves hung past her hands. The collar smelled of him still even after a year. She turned the lantern down to a glow. She took the letter in one hand and her father's shotgun in the other. She went to the back door. She laid her palm flat against the wood. "Papa?" She lifted the bar. She did not make it 3 steps into the alley. A shape moved at the corner of the livery. A boot scraped. A hand closed on her wrist. She swung the shotgun up with her free arm. The barrel went against a chest. "Easy, Miss Sterling." "Get your hand off me." "Miss Sterling, it is me." "Let go." "It is Reverend Hollis, child. Put the gun down." She let out a breath she had not known she was holding. He let go of her wrist. He stepped back into the thin light coming off her doorway. He was in his coat. No Bible tonight. He had come in the dark. "Reverend?" "Beatrice." "What are you doing in my alley?" "I am standing in your alley, child, because a man came to me 3 hours ago and said you would be leaving your back door tonight on an errand you could not afford to be seen on. And I reckoned I knew which errand." "Who told you?" "Sheriff Boone." She stared at him. "The sheriff?" "Yes, child." "The sheriff told you." "The sheriff, Beatrice, is not the man Mr. Patterson thinks he is. He served the paper this morning because the ordinance made him. He is not required to do anything else Mr. Patterson asks of him, and he has not. Reverend, give me the letter, Beatrice. Reverend, I cannot. Give it here, child. It is 12 miles. I know where Quinn Valley lies. I have buried 3 Quinn Valley men in my life. The old man will see me at his door at any hour. Reverend, if Harlan's men catch you." "Beatrice, Dax Harlan's men are not going to stop a Methodist preacher on a road at night. Not even Dax Harlan is that far gone. Give me the letter." Her hand shook. She held it out. He took it. He put it inside his coat. "Beatrice." "Sir?" "Go back inside." "Yes, sir." "Bar the door." "Yes, sir." "Do not open it for any voice you do not know in daylight." "Yes, sir." "Monday morning I will be at the council meeting, and I will sit in the front row. And whatever Mr. Quinn chooses to do, I will stand when it is my turn to stand, and I will say what I know about your father, and what I know about this town, and what I know about a man named Dax Harlan." "Reverend, child, why are you doing this?" He looked at her a long moment in the near dark. "Beatrice, your father used to give me a loaf every Sunday, for 21 years. He never took a penny for it. Not one. He said it was payment on the sermon." She put her hand over her mouth. "I ain't paid him back for a single loaf, Beatrice." "Reverend, I mean to pay him back on Monday." She could not speak. "Inside, child. Go." She went. She heard him moving in the alley behind her. Then nothing. Then very faint far off a horse on the south trail going fast. She barred the door. She sat down on the flour sack stool. She was not alone. She had not been alone since Quincy Vale had tipped his hat at her counter on Tuesday. She had only been thinking she was. The night went long. She did not sleep. She did not try. She sat by her front window with her father's shotgun across her knees, and every hour she stood and she walked the inside of her bakery front to back, and she put her hand on the bar of each door. At dawn on Friday, someone knocked 3 short taps light at the back. "Miss Sterling, Tomas." She unbarred. He came in quick. He did not take off his hat. He did not sit. "Ma'am, the letter. Mr. Quinn has it. Reverend Hollis rode in at 2 o'clock last night. The old man read it standing in his nightshirt. He said to tell you he will be at your council meeting on Monday." She gripped the edge of the counter. "He said that." "He said it, ma'am. Word for word. He said, you tell Miss Sterling I will be there. I and 14 of my men. And then he said, you tell Quincy to stay put until I say otherwise. And then he said..." Tomas hesitated. "What did he say, Mr. Delgado?" "He said, you tell that Baker girl she writes a letter like her daddy did. I used to get letters from her daddy." Beatrice turned her face away. "Ma'am?" "Give me a minute, Mr. Delgado." "Yes, ma'am." She wiped her eyes on her sleeve. She turned back. "Is Mr. Vale all right?" "He is, ma'am. The arm is clean. You did good work on it." "He is staying at the ranch." "He is furious, ma'am. He wanted to ride back last night. The old man told him if he rode off the ranch before Monday, he would be fired." "Good. Tell Mr. Vale." "Yes, ma'am." "Tell Mr. Vale I am obliged to him for obeying." "Yes, ma'am." Tomas tipped his hat. He left the way he had come. Friday passed slow. Saturday slower. She did not open the bakery to the town. She baked anyway. She filled her racks. She could not stop her hands from working any more than she could stop her chest from breathing. When Saturday evening came, she wrapped every loaf in clean cloth, and she laid them in the storeroom, and she thought, "If I lose on Monday, someone will eat this bread before Patterson puts me on the road." Late Saturday there was a knock at her front. A woman's knock. Soft, uncertain. "We are closed." "Beatrice." Her hand paused on the bar. "Beatrice, it is Ruth Carter." Ruth Carter, the miller's wife, the wife of the man who had refused her flour on Tuesday. "Mrs. Carter." "Please, Beatrice. 1 minute." She unbarred. She did not open wide. Ruth Carter stood on the boards, a shawl around her shoulders, her face tight. "Ruth." "Beatrice, I am sorry." "Ruth, I am sorry. My Samuel, he should not have done it, and I have told him, and he knows. Your husband refused me flour, Ruth." "He did. I could have gone hungry, Ruth. I know. I could have lost this place on Tuesday." "I know, Beatrice. And you come here Saturday night." Ruth Carter's eyes filled. "Samuel is sick, Beatrice. With shame. He has been sick since Tuesday. He told me tonight, he told me to come and say if you still want flour from our mill come Monday morning, he will sell it to you at cost. And if the council takes your license, he will sell it to you anyway. Out the back door, for as long as you want to bake." "Ruth, he said your father gave him his first job, Beatrice, when he was 14, swept your father's shop for 2 bits a week. He said he had not remembered that on Tuesday. He said he remembered it Tuesday night, and he has not slept a good night since." Beatrice put her hand against the doorframe. "Ruth, I am so sorry, Beatrice. You tell Samuel." "Yes. You tell Samuel his daddy also gave my daddy a sack of flour on credit the winter my mama died. I was 7, I remember." "Oh, Beatrice?" "We will not be needing the flour at cost, Ruth. I will pay the full price." "Samuel, full price, Ruth, because I am going to win on Monday. And when I do, I am not going to walk into this new year owing a debt to the miller." Ruth Carter nodded. She put a hand to her mouth. She went. Beatrice barred the door. She sat down on the flour sack stool, and for the first time since Tuesday morning she laughed. A short laugh. One that came up out of her without asking. She put her hand over her mouth like she had caught something indecent happening inside her chest. "Papa?" She shook her head. "Papa, this town." She slept 4 hours that night. It was more than she had slept in a week. Sunday she went to church. She had not been to church in a year. She went in her mother's good dress, the one she had been married in, and the one Beatrice had been saving for her own wedding, that she had long stopped believing would come. She walked down the aisle with her back straight. She sat in her father's pew, 3 rows from the front left side. She did not look at Eleanor Holloway. She did not look at Mr. Patterson. She did not look at Dax Harland, who sat in the back in a clean black coat, the thin smile still on his mouth hat off at last. Reverend Hollis preached from Proverbs. He did not look at her either. But when he came to his final reading, he read the verse the way a man reads a verdict. "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape." Patterson shifted in his pew. Dax Harland did not. Beatrice sat still. After the service, as the congregation spilled out onto the boards, Eleanor Holloway stepped across her path. "Beatrice?" "Eleanor, I want you to know about tomorrow." "Eleanor, I only?" "Eleanor, I want you to know something too." "Beatrice, tomorrow is not about you, Eleanor. Tomorrow is about my father's shop. You are only a small part of it. And after tomorrow, I will not hate you, Eleanor, because I do not have time to hate a woman who does not matter enough to hate. I will only not speak to you, ever, again. Not in this church, not on these boards, not across a counter if you come into my bakery. My bakery will serve you bread because my bakery serves everyone, but it will serve you in silence." Eleanor's face went white. "Beatrice." "Good afternoon, Eleanor." She stepped around her. Monday came gray at the window. The town council met in the back room of the town hall at 9 o'clock. Beatrice was at the door at 8:30. She wore her mother's good dress. Her hair was up. Her father's license, the original framed in pine dated 1867, was in her hand. Reverend Hollis was already inside in the front row where he had said he would be. Sheriff Boone stood at the door. He did not speak to her. He did nod. Once. She understood. Patterson came in at 8:45. He had a folder under his arm, fat with paper. Eleanor Holloway walked in 2 steps behind him. Mrs. Crane, the Pickens sisters. A dozen of Eleanor's women filled the benches on the left side of the room. Sunday bonnets and tight mouths, a row of them like a jury that had already made up its mind. The right side of the room was empty. At 9 exactly, the mayor, a tired man named Dunlap, who had worn the office because no one else would take it, called the session. The matter before this council is the complaint of Mr. Horace Patterson and Mrs. Eleanor Holloway, respectfully filed regarding the fitness of Miss Beatrice Sterling to hold a business license in the town of Durango. Mr. Mayor. It was Patterson, already on his feet. Mr. Patterson. Mr. Mayor, if the council pleases, I have prepared a brief statement. The door at the back of the room opened. Every head turned. A man walked in. He was old. He was shorter than Beatrice had imagined. His hair was white and cut close to his head, and his face was the color of a saddle that had been worked 30 years and oiled every Sunday. He did not take off his hat at the door. He took it off when he reached the aisle, and he held it against his chest, and he walked down to the front of the room, the way an old man walks when he has lived long enough to know exactly how long it takes him to cross any room in the world. Behind him through the door came 14 men in work clothes. They filled the right side of the room. They did not sit. They stood, hats in hands. Quincy Vale was the 7th man in. He did not look at Beatrice. He looked at the floor. He did what the old man had told him to do. The old man reached the front. He stopped. He tipped his head at the mayor. Mr. Dunlap? Mr. Quinn. I apologize for the interruption. It is no interruption, Mr. Quinn. The chair recognizes you. Much obliged. He turned slow and he looked at the benches, at Eleanor Holloway's bonnets, at Patterson, at Dax Harland in the back of the room, who had come in behind the Quinn Valley men and was leaning now against the back wall with his hat still on. Mr. Mayor, I have come into town this morning on 2 items of business. Yes, sir. The first is to clear my foreman's name, which has been slandered in this town for 3 years by a man who murdered his own brother on a trail drive in the Uncompahgre Mountains in the summer of 1883. The room went still. The second is to speak on behalf of a baker who has fed my outfit good bread at an honest price for exactly 1 week, which is 1 week longer than most of you here have shown her any Christian kindness at all. Patterson was on his feet. Mr. Mayor, this is not... Mr. Patterson. Mr. Quinn did not raise his voice. He did not have to. Mr. Patterson, sit down. Patterson sat. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Quinn. I will take the first item first. In the summer of 1883, on the 10th of August, my foreman Joseph Harland was shot dead on a trail drive. The man who killed him was his own brother, Dax Harland. I have had this testimony from 3 of my hands, 2 of whom are dead now, and 1 of whom is standing in this room. That hand is Tomas Delgado. Stand up, Tomas. Tomas stood. The story that has gone around this town is that Quincy Vale killed Joe Harland for the foreman job. That story is a lie. I paid Dax Harland $200 in 1883 to leave the territory. I should not have done it. I did it because Joe was his brother, and I did not wish to hang a man's brother. That was a weakness. I am 81 years old, and I am here today to correct it. He turned, slow. He looked at the back of the room. Dax Harland. Dax pushed off the wall. Mr. Quinn, you are going to ride out of this town today, Dax. You are going to ride south. And you are not going to stop riding until you are in Arizona territory. Because if Sheriff Boone comes into my possession of the sworn deposition I am carrying in this coat, which is Tomas Delgado's statement as to what he saw you do to your brother, then the sheriff is going to put a warrant on you. And a warrant from this county will follow you anywhere in the United States of America you choose to go. Old man Dax, you would put paper on me. I am putting paper on you, Dax. I have only not yet handed it to the sheriff. You have until sundown." Dax Harlan's thin smile was gone. His mouth had gone flat. He looked at Patterson. Patterson did not look back. Dax Harlan turned. He walked out of the back of the room. His boots were loud on the boards all the way down the hall and out onto the street. The room did not move. Mr. Quinn turned back to the front. "Mr. Mayor, Mr. Quinn." "The second item." "Yes, sir." "This council is meeting this morning to strip the business license of Miss Beatrice Sterling." "Yes, sir." "On a complaint of conduct." "Yes, sir." "On account of she sold bread to my foreman before sunrise." That is the gist of the complaint, Mr. Quinn." Mr. Quinn looked at the bonnets on the left side of the room. "Mrs. Holloway." Eleanor stood. Her hands were shaking. "Mr. Quinn?" "Mrs. Holloway, how many loaves of bread does your household consume in a week?" "I, sir." "How many, Mrs. Holloway?" Six, Mr. Quinn." 6 loaves. "And who bakes them?" I bake them myself." "You bake 6 loaves a week in your own oven for your own family of 4?" "Yes, sir." "Mrs. Holloway, my outfit eats 130 loaves a week. We have 31 men on the payroll. I do not have a woman in the kitchen because my wife died in 1878, and I have not remarried. So my 31 men have been eating bread I pay a baker to bake for 11 years, first out of Silverton, now out of Durango." "Yes, sir. And I pay that baker, Mrs. Holloway, for honest work. And my foreman rides in at dawn and picks up those loaves because they come out of the oven at dawn. Because that is when bread comes out of an oven." "Yes, sir." "And now a woman in this town has filed a complaint at the town council because my foreman conducted Quinn Valley business at the hour that Quinn Valley business happens. Mr. Quinn, Mrs. Holloway, sit down." She sat. "Mr. Mayor, Mr. Quinn, I would like to say for the record that Miss Beatrice Sterling bakes the finest bread in the southern half of this state. My men have told me so. I have tasted it myself. And I am prepared to say before this council that if her license is taken from her today, Quinn Valley will move its business out of Durango. Not only its bread contract, Mr. Mayor, its beef, its leather, its lumber, every account we have in this town, and we will take them to Silverton where they came from, and we will not come back." Dunlap's jaw worked. "Mr. Quinn, That is not a threat, Mr. Mayor. I am too old to threaten. It is simply a statement of fact. A town that will not protect a woman baking bread is not a town I will send my men into. And I have 40 years of doing business in this county to know what my name is worth when I say a thing like that." Silence. "Mr. Mayor?" "Mr. Quinn." "I will sit down now." He sat down in the front row next to Reverend Hollis. The 2 old men did not look at each other. But the Reverend put a hand briefly on Mr. Quinn's sleeve. Dunlap cleared his throat. The council will consider the complaint." He did not consider it long. "The complaint is dismissed. Miss Sterling's license is affirmed. This session is adjourned." The gavel came down. Eleanor Holloway did not look at Beatrice. Mr. Patterson did not look at Beatrice either. He gathered his papers with hands that did not quite work, and he walked out of the hall, and he did not come back. Beatrice stood in the front row. Her father's license was still in her hand. Quincy Vale crossed the floor to her. His left arm was in a clean sling. His hat was in his right hand. "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Vale." "Mr. Vale." "Ma'am." "Thursday." "Mr. Vale, 3 in the morning." "Ma'am, my oven is cold by Wednesday night. I will need to light it at midnight Wednesday, to have 40 loaves ready by 3 Thursday morning, and I will need a wagon at the back at 3:15. "Yes, Miss Sterling." "Are you going to be driving that wagon, Mr. Vale?" "I am, Miss Sterling." "Good, because I did not get a chance to bake that loaf for your mother on Thursday." He looked down at his hat. "Ma'am, I owe Ruth Vale a loaf of bread, Mr. Vale. I mean to pay her." "Miss Sterling." "Mr. Vale?" "Thank you." Do not thank me, Mr. Vale. I am a baker. Bread is what I do. He smiled. Small. The first smile she had seen on him. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Quinn stood at last. He came over. He looked her up and down with a pair of pale blue eyes that had looked at a great many things in 81 years. Miss Sterling. Mr. Quinn. Your daddy wrote me a letter in 1879, sir. When my Mary died, Miss Sterling. He wrote me a letter. I still have it. He was not a man of many words, your daddy. But he wrote me a letter, and he said it did not matter. A man had cattle if he did not have a woman to eat supper with. He said it the way a man says a thing he knows. Yes, sir. I think on that letter sometimes. Yes, sir. Miss Sterling, you write like your daddy wrote, short, to the purpose. I was pleased to have your letter in my hand on Friday night. Thank you, sir. Good day, Miss Sterling. I will see you Thursday. Thursday, Mr. Quinn? He tipped his hat. He walked out slow, the way an 81-year-old man walks across any room in the world. The Quinn Valley men followed him, one by one. 14 hats came off at her as they passed. Quincy was the last. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. I will be at your back door at 3:15 Thursday morning. I will be ready, Mr. Vale. He hesitated. Miss Sterling. Yes, my arm. I will look at it Thursday, Mr. Vale, when you come for the bread. Yes, ma'am? Go on now, before Mrs. Holloway recovers her tongue. His smile came back. He tipped his hat. He went. Beatrice stood in the empty front row of the town hall, her father's license in her hand, her mother's good dress on her shoulders. And for the first time in a year and a half, she could not tell quite whether her heart was pounding from fear or from something else that had been waiting underneath the fear the whole time. She walked out of the hall into the noon light of a Monday in June. Down the boards, past the mercantile, past Patterson's closed office door, past the church, to her bakery. She put the license up on the wall next to her father's apron. She tied an apron on. She lit the oven. And the bell rang. She turned. Ruth Carter was in her doorway. Behind Ruth, Samuel Carter had in hand. Behind Samuel, 3 women Beatrice had not seen in her bakery in 2 years. Behind them, a line of townspeople quiet down her boards. Samuel Carter was the first to speak. Miss Sterling, ma'am, I come to buy bread. Beatrice put her hand on the counter. She steadied. Mr. Carter, I have bread. Yes, ma'am. How many would you like? 2, Miss Sterling. 2 it is. And she wrapped them, and she took his coin, and she set it in her tin box under the floorboard, and she turned to the next one in line. The bell rang the whole afternoon. By Thursday, dawn, Beatrice had been at the oven since midnight. She heard the wagon in the alley at 14 minutes past 3. She was at the back door before he had the brake set. Mr. Vale? Miss Sterling? How is the arm? Holding. Let me see it. Ma'am, the loaves? The loaves are wrapped in clean cloth on my counter, and they are going nowhere until I see that arm. Sit down. He sat. She unwrapped the bandage in the lantern light. The honey had done its work. The edges had closed. The color was right. You have a good hand, Miss Sterling. I had a good mother, Mr. Vale. That makes 2 of us. She wrapped it clean. She stood. 41 loaves today, Mr. Vale. 41. I added 1. She lifted the topmost from the stack. Wrapped separate. A loaf smaller than the others with a tight braid across the crown that her mother had taught her when she was 9 years old. For Ruth Vale, Mr. Vale. Like I said. He did not move to take it. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. My mother. I know, sir. She never baked again. She would have liked this, ma'am. She would have cried. Then eat it slow, Mr. Vale, so it lasts. He took it. He held it against his chest with his good arm a long moment. Then he set it very careful on the seat of the wagon, not in the bed with the others. They loaded the rest in 9 minutes. Tomas was there. He did not speak, but he tipped his hat at Beatrice twice. Once when he arrived, and once when he climbed up to his seat. The second tip was longer. Quincy stopped at her back door before he climbed up. Miss Sterling? Mr. Vale. Sunday. Sunday. Sunday afternoon, ma'am, after church. Mr. Quinn asked me to invite you out to the ranch. For supper. Supper. Yes, ma'am. The old man does not invite folks to supper, Miss Sterling. Not since his Mary passed. In 11 years he has not invited a single soul to his table. I thought you ought to know that. She put her hand on the doorframe. Sunday, Mr. Vale. I will come for you at 2. 2? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Vale. Ma'am? What do I bring? A loaf, Miss Sterling. He asked for one with a braid on it. He climbed up. He tipped his hat. The wagon rolled out of her alley in the dark. She closed the door. She barred it. She stood with her back against the wood. Then she laughed one sharp, small laugh, and she did not know until the laugh was out of her that she had not laughed like that in 2 years. The days that followed changed by the hour. Friday morning her bell rang at 6. It rang again at 6:15. By 7 she had sold a third of her rack. By 8 half. By noon, every loaf. She baked a second batch. It went by 3. She baked a third. She sold the last of it at 5 to a boy who brought a nickel on behalf of his mother, who had not crossed her threshold in 8 months. Tell your mama I said hello, son. Yes, ma'am. Tell her the bread's still warm. Yes, ma'am. Saturday she baked 4 batches. They all went. Sunday she wore her mother's good dress again. She braided a loaf with a tight, careful plait. She wrapped it in a linen cloth her mother had hemmed in 1871. And when Quincy Vale came to her boards at 2 o'clock in a clean shirt, with his hat in his hand, she let him help her up to the wagon seat. And she did not speak a single word, the entire 12 miles out to Quinn Valley, and he did not push her to speak. And when at last they came over the last rise, and she saw the ranch house laid out below, with its long porch and its 2 stone chimneys, and the old man standing on his steps in a clean coat to meet her, she put her hand against her mouth, and she did not lower it until the wagon had stopped. Miss Sterling? Mr. Quinn. Come in out of the sun, child. She did not know what she had expected. She had not expected a kitchen that smelled of rosemary. She had not expected the old man to pull out her chair himself. She had not expected the table to be set for 3 with his Mary's good plates. Quincy told her later quietly that those plates had not come out of the cupboard since 1878. Miss Sterling. Mr. Quinn, you brought the loaf. I did, sir. Put it on that board there, child. I will cut it myself. He cut it. He passed a piece to Quincy. He passed a piece to Beatrice. He took one for himself. He ate it slow. He did not speak until he had swallowed. Miss Sterling. Sir? I have eaten bread on 3 continents in my life. Yes, sir. You bake the finest loaf I have ever put in my mouth. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. That is not a compliment, child. That is a fact. I am too old for compliments. Yes, sir. I would like to offer you a standing contract. Sir. 130 loaves a week, Miss Sterling. 3 deliveries. At a price I will name and you will accept because it is fair. A 2-year contract. Renewable. I have the papers in the other room. My foreman will bring them in at the end of supper if you tell me you are interested. She set down her fork. Mr. Quinn? Miss Sterling. 130 a week. Yes, child? That is steady bread for a steady baker, Miss Sterling. Is it a yes or a no? It is a yes, sir. Good. Eat your supper. She ate her supper. Quincy did not speak much. He watched her. He watched the old man. He passed the salt when she asked for it. He laughed once very soft when Mr. Quinn told a story about a bull that had broken a fence in 1874 and chased the Reverend 100 yards across a pasture. At the end of the meal, the old man stood. I am going out to smoke, Miss Sterling. Yes, sir. My foreman will sit with you while I am gone. I am 81 years old. I do not believe a widower needs a chaperone for a baker, but the town might. So my foreman will sit. Sir. Good evening, Miss Sterling. He tipped his head. He went out. The door closed. Quincy and Beatrice sat across the table from each other. Silence stretched. Mr. Vale? Miss Sterling? This is a fine table. It is, ma'am. He does not eat at it much. No, ma'am. He eats at the bunkhouse with us, most nights. Why did he lay it tonight? Ma'am. Mr. Vale. He laid it for you, Miss Sterling. I know he laid it for me. I am asking why. Quincy set down his coffee cup. He looked at it a long moment. Ma'am. The old man lost his wife 11 years ago, come October. Yes, sir. He has not had a woman at his table in 11 years. I am aware, Mr. Vale. He did not lay this table for himself, Miss Sterling. She did not speak. He laid this table for me, ma'am. Her hand on her coffee cup stilled. Mr. Vale? Ma'am. Did you ask him to? No, Miss Sterling, I did not ask him. Then, he asked me, Tuesday, after the council. He said, boy, I have been watching you for 11 years do a man's work and keep a man's mouth shut. And I rode into town last week behind a woman who wrote me a letter in her own hand and put her name on the bottom of it and did not flinch at a killer in her bakery. And I will be in the ground in 5 years. Boy, he said, I have been thinking about your mother. And he said, Quincy stopped. Mr. Vale, he said, boy, if you do not find the nerve to ask that woman to supper, I will ask her myself, on your behalf, because I am too old to watch a good man go shy on a good thing. Beatrice put her coffee cup down. Slow. Mr. Vale, ma'am, you did not ask me to supper. No, ma'am. He did. Yes, ma'am. Through you. Yes, ma'am. Why, Mr. Vale? Because, Mr. Vale, because Miss Sterling, the day I walked into your bakery, the first day, Tuesday, with the $60. Yes. I walked out of your bakery with the bread in my saddlebag, and I did not ride out of town for 4 hours, Miss Sterling. Beg pardon? 4 hours, ma'am. I sat my horse at the water trough behind the livery. 4 hours. Why? Because I could not ride away Miss Sterling. I could not do it. I was 12 miles to the ranch, and the old man was expecting that bread by noon. And I sat at the water trough for 4 hours because the idea of riding away from your bakery and not seeing you at the counter again felt like something I could not do. So I sat, and then I rode. And the whole 12 miles I thought about what I would say when I came back on Wednesday. Wednesday? Yes, ma'am. You did not come back on Wednesday. I did, Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale, you came back on Thursday. I came back on Wednesday, ma'am. 4 in the afternoon. I stood across the street at the mercantile porch for 20 minutes. I watched you through your front window. You were sweeping. You had your father's apron on. You were talking to yourself, ma'am. I did not know what you were saying. You were talking to your father, I reckon. I could not knock on that door, Miss Sterling. So I rode back to the ranch, and I told myself I would come Thursday with the flour, and you were stopped on the South Road. By Harlan's men, yes, ma'am? Mr. Vale. Miss Sterling. You watched me sweep. Yes, ma'am. 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am. She covered her mouth. She let out one small sound that was not a laugh and was not a cry. Mr. Vale. Miss Sterling. I am sitting in a dead woman's kitchen at a dead woman's table wearing my dead mother's dress, with a man who watched me sweep through my own window asking me, I am not asking you anything yet, Miss Sterling. Yet. No, ma'am. Mr. Vale. Ma'am. When are you going to ask me? He looked up. His face had gone very still. Miss Sterling. Mr. Vale. Mr. Vale? I have sat in this chair for 1 hour. I have seen you pass me salt with a hand that has a 4-inch cut in it that you got riding to feed my bakery. I have sat in a kitchen that an 81-year-old man opened for the first time in 11 years because he wants you to have what he had. So do not sit here, Mr. Vale, and tell me you are not going to ask me a question. Ask me the question, Mr. Vale. He stood. Not fast. He walked around the table. He did not drop to a knee. He stood in front of her chair. He took his hat off, though he had not been wearing it, and set it on the table because he needed his hands to do something. Beatrice Sterling. Mr. Vale. Quincy. Quincy. Beatrice, I have a bunkhouse and $11.40 a month and a cut on my arm that your hand put a bandage on. I have no house. I have my mother's name and my own. I have a job I can keep as long as I stay alive and do it right. I have been looking at women across saloons and across streets and across church pews for 16 years. Beatrice and I have not once walked up to one of them. Not one. Because I did not have anything to walk up with. And then I rode past your lantern. And I rode past it 3 nights. And I am 34 years old, and I have never once in my life been as scared as I was on the morning I opened your bakery door with $60 in my pocket. Because I knew, Beatrice Sterling, I knew before the bell rang. You knew what, Quincy? That if you looked at me a certain way across that counter, I was not going to be a foreman at Quinn Valley anymore. I was going to be a man who was going to spend the rest of his life riding out for the bread. Quincy. Let me finish, Beatrice. Yes, I am not asking you for your bakery. I am not asking you to move out to this ranch. The old man has offered me a parcel. 200 acres on the north boundary, with a creek. I would build a house on it, Beatrice. And you would keep your bakery in town. 6 days in Durango, and Sundays at the creek. Or any arrangement you name. Any arrangement in this world. Because your bakery is your daddy's, and I am not a man who takes a woman's daddy's shop from her. Quincy Vale. Beatrice, are you asking me? I am Beatrice Sterling. I am asking you to marry me. She stood up. Quincy. Yes. Put your hat back on. Ma'am. Put your hat back on, Quincy Vale, and tip it at me, the way you did in my bakery on Tuesday, the way you did Thursday when you left with 40 loaves, the way you did every single time you walked through my door in the worst week of my life, because that tip of your hat was the first kindness a man had shown me in a year and a half. And I have been waiting for you to do it again, Quincy, every time you have walked into a room since. He picked up his hat, he put it on, he tipped it. Miss Sterling. Yes, Quincy. Yes, to which part, Miss Sterling? Yes to all of it, Quincy Vale. Yes to the ranch and the creek and the house. Yes to the bakery 6 days and Sundays out here. Yes to the old man at our table on holidays. Yes to Ruth Vale's name on a brass plate above the door. Yes to whatever else you have not thought to ask yet. Yes, Quincy. Yes. He did not know what to do with his hands. He took them off his hat. He put them down. He put them up. She reached out and she took his hands in hers. Quincy. Beatrice. Sit down before you fall down, Quincy Vale. He sat. The door opened. Mr. Quinn stood in it. He did not come in. He only stood. He looked at the two of them across his Mary's table. Well, boy. Sir? Did you do it? Yes, sir. And? Beatrice stood. She turned to him. She tipped her chin up. And yes, Mr. Quinn. The old man took his hat off, slow. He held it against his chest, and for the first time since Beatrice had met him, his pale blue eyes filled. Miss Sterling. Mr. Quinn. I am very pleased, child. Thank you, sir. My Mary would have liked you. I would have liked to know her, sir. She was a baker too, child. Did I ever tell you? No, sir, you did not. She baked honey cakes every Sunday of her life, from the time she was 12 to the day she died. There is a little oven in the back pantry of this house. It has not been lit in 11 years. I would like, Miss Sterling, if you would light it one Sunday. I will light it next Sunday, Mr. Quinn, and every Sunday after that. Much obliged, child. He put his hat back on. He tipped it, slow. Boy. Sir. Drive the woman home, carefully. It is dark. Yes, sir. They drove back under stars. On the wagon seat, Quincy held the reins in his good hand, and somewhere on the road between Quinn Valley and Durango, without asking and without speaking, he let his wounded arm lay across her shoulders. The sling gone, and she put her head against him, and did not lift it again for 12 miles. At the alley behind her bakery, he climbed down. He helped her down. He walked her to her back door. Beatrice. Quincy. Thursday. Thursday, Mr. Vale. 3 in the morning. I will be ready. Beatrice. Yes. Say yes one more time. Yes, Quincy Vale. He tipped his hat. He smiled the small smile. He waited until she had barred the door on the inside before he climbed back on the wagon. She stood in her dark bakery. She did not light the lantern. She crossed to her counter. She put her hand on the wood her father had cut and planed and pegged together in 1866. She put her hand flat against the grain. Papa. She waited. Papa, a man asked me to marry him tonight. The apron on the peg did not answer. He is a good man, Papa. He watched me sweep through the window for 20 minutes before he had the nerve to knock again. He cries when he says his mother's name. He let his boss offer him a parcel and a house, so I would not have to leave your bakery. He tipped his hat at me on the worst morning of my life, when no one else in this town would cross the street for me. The oven ticked in its own heat. Papa, I know what you said to me, the morning you died. You said I was the only thing you ever made worth a damn. And Papa... She stopped. Her throat worked. Papa, I am going to keep making bread, in this building. In the shop you built. The name Sterling stays on that glass. I built this back up with my own 2 hands. Papa and I do not need a man to give me worth I have already paid for in flour. But I have chosen a man, Papa. And I chose him the way you chose Mama. Because he looked at me across a counter one morning and he saw a woman working. She wiped her face on her sleeve. You raised me right, Papa. And for the first time in a year and a half, she said it without apology and without the doubt that had been sitting under everything she had done since the morning he died. They were married in September, on the boards in front of her bakery, because she would not be married anywhere else. Reverend Hollis performed the ceremony. Mr. Quinn stood up with Quincy. Ruth Carter stood up with Beatrice in a dress she had sewn in the 2 months between the Sunday on the ranch and the Saturday of the wedding. Samuel Carter walked her down the boards. Tomas Delgado held the rings. Sheriff Boone kept order, which on that day was not needed. Eleanor Holloway did not come. She had not crossed Beatrice's threshold since the Monday of the council. She never would again. Beatrice kept her promise. The bakery served her in silence for the rest of both of their lives, and Eleanor Holloway learned slowly over the years that followed what it was to eat bread bought from a woman who would not look at her. Mr. Patterson sold his interest in the building to Beatrice in August for $200 less than half of what he had offered her in June. He did it because Sheriff Boone came to his office with a folder of papers regarding the origin of certain notes Patterson had called in over the years, and regarding a signature on a rental agreement with Hiram Sterling that did not quite match Hiram Sterling's hand in any other document in the county. Patterson left Durango in November. He did not come back either. Dax Harland was never seen again in Colorado. The bakery prospered. By the following summer, Beatrice had hired her first girl, an orphan from the Methodist home, 15 years old, with steady hands and a quiet mouth. By the year after that, she had 2 girls and a boy. The Sterling name stayed on the glass. It was there when her first child was born, a girl named Ruth, who was baptized by Reverend Hollis in the fall of 1887. And it was there when Beatrice stood behind her counter, at 58 years old, her hair gone gray, her husband gone silver, and sold a loaf to a great-granddaughter of Eleanor Holloway, who did not know the old story, and was greeted kindly because Beatrice Sterling Vale did not hold grudges into the second generation. She did hold one thing. She held every morning of her working life the memory of a young woman on her knees in flour dust, clutching an eviction notice, whispering to a father who could no longer answer. And every morning, standing behind the counter her father had built, she told that young woman the same thing. You are not what they say you are. You are not what they take from you. You are not what they refuse to give you. You are what you build with your own 2 hands in the dark before the sun. And no man, and no town, and no bonnet in any Sunday pew can take that from you, because you already made it, and it was yours before they ever knew your name. That is the only worth a woman ever needs. And Beatrice Sterling had it the day she walked into that bakery at 28 years old, with nothing but her father's apron and an oven she could barely light, and she had it on the day she walked out of it at 81 for the last time, with her name still on the glass, and her daughter standing behind the counter and her husband waiting for her on the boards, his hat in his hand, tipping it at her one final time. She built her own worth, she kept it, she passed it on. And that is the end of it.